everyone. Let's take a little look at Earth goddesses. There are many types of goddesses in world mythology, but today we're looking at only three types: the Mother or Earth goddess, the Destroyer goddess, and the Angry goddess. We'll be examining a few examples of each as well. Let's begin with the concept of the Earth goddess. The Earth or Mother goddess is one of the oldest archetypes in mythology, associated with fertility all over the world. She represents the cyclical seasons of the natural world, particularly those cycles of planting, the moon, and the sea. In the two following slides, I have included images of two well-known carvings known as Venus figures. Generally because they're quite voluptuous and naked, scholars have named them after the Roman goddess of love. These figures come from the Paleolithic, this one is an example of Paleolithic, and the Neolithic periods, and usually depict rather full-figured or obviously pregnant women. Because these figures are prehistoric, we have no documentation of their function, but most scholars agree that they probably had something to do with fertility rites. Our first example is actually a bit of an aberration. Most goddesses associated with fertility are also associated with the earth. Male creator gods are associated with the sky. In the case of the Egyptian Nut, she is a sky god, and her husband / brother Geb is an earth god. She's called the mother of the sun, moon, and stars. Earth goddesses are often associated with the moon because of the lunar cycles. In the following two images, we first see her as the heavenly cow, her heavenly cow aspect, with sunboats carrying day and night underneath her. In the second image, Nut is seen swallowing the sun at the end of the day and giving birth to it the next morning. We'll be looking at two Native American goddesses. The first is Spider Woman, who is frequently seen in Southwest American mythology, particularly the Pueblo mythologies, Pueblo cultures. In many of the emergence myths, it's Spider Woman who helps the creatures emerge through the levels into this world. Astarte is representative of a number of fertility goddesses in the Middle East. She plays some of the same roles as the Sumerian Inanna and the Babylonian Ishtar. Astarte is known in the Hebrew Old Testament. The Book of Judges, for example, calls her Ashtoreth. In geographically large areas that host many cultures, such as the Middle East and India, the mergings of cultures lead to gods and goddesses having many functions and names. Astarte falls into this category. She's known by different forms, but is mostly associated with the sea, the stars, and again the moon. And here's an image of her in Egypt. She's often shown as standing on a lion. The second Native American goddess is White Buffalo Woman, found in Lakota Sioux culture. She's also known as a culture hero that provides the Lakota with the sacred pipe and, of course, buffalo. Our second category is that of destroyer, mothers who destroy, sometimes even their own offspring. In cyclical views in particular, destruction leads to creation. So the destroyer aspect of a goddess is linked to war and death. One of the most well-known of destroyer goddesses is the Hindu Kali. Devi is one of the most important goddesses of Hindu mythology. Hindu deities take on many forms. One of Devi's forms is Kali. We'll encounter another of her forms in a bit. As Kali, she brings war, disease, and destruction, all necessary in the cycle of life. As we see in this image, Kali is often seen standing with one foot on the chest of her husband Shiva, surrounded by carnage. Pele is another destruction goddess who's associated with fire and volcanoes in Polynesian culture, like this volcano here in Hawaii. Our final category is that of angry goddesses. These are goddesses who are generally destructive, but I put them in this category because they are seekers of revenge for the wrongs done to them. As in the myth of Sedna that you've already encountered, when these goddesses are angry, sacrifices have to be made. One goddess who people are sometimes surprised to hear about is Lilith, the first mythical female rebel in a way. The Lilith legend grew out of the first of the two creation stories in the Hebrew Old Testament, which has God creating two beings at once. She is named in some translations of the Old Testament in the book of Isaiah, for example, but usually she's associated with night birds or owls, depending on your translation. A very angry woman who did not want to be submissive to her husband Adam. She takes up with demons and threatens pregnant women. Many charm necklaces and bracelets have been found, asking Lilith to spare the newborn. Durga is another aspect of Devi. She was born out of the anger of Vishnu and Shiva, along with that of the other gods, as they faced the demon Mahishasura's destruction. This demon was in the form of a water buffalo, but took the form of a lion as he battled Durga. Sacrifices of water buffalo were then made to Durga during festivals. And here's Durga and in her Mahishasura form, where she's killing the demon Mahishasura. All right, and I'm sure everyone is familiar with Medusa from Greek mythology. Medusa was raped by Poseidon in one of Athena's temples. Instead of blaming Poseidon for the desecration of the temple, Medusa was blamed instead and turned into a monster with serpents for hair and an anger that turned men to stone with her gaze. This is one example of her. And finally, we have a Welsh goddess, Rhiannon. She was accused of killing her own son by servants who had been negligent and allowed enemies to kidnap the child. Rhiannon was forced to take the form of a horse and carry men on her back. So very angry goddess here. So I couldn't find a good image of Rhiannon for you, so I decided to close with an image of my daughter, who we named Rhiannon, but one who definitely does not have an angry disposition.